You ever have someone steal your home, then hand it over to their own kid like it's a gift basket at Christmas? Because that's exactly what went down in my life, and I'm still shaking my head about it. This story's got everything fraud, revenge, the worst kind of HOA drama you can imagine, an offense so bold it split the neighborhood right in half. Stick around because the way justice landed at the end of this circus is almost too good to be true. Let me take you back. My grandfather's old cabin sat right on the lake, hugged by these ancient oaks that felt like they'd been there since the beginning of time. 30 years our family called that place home from the first day my granddad hammered two boards together until the summer I inherited it at 35. You want to talk sanctuary? That's what this cabin was for me, just a spot where the world got quiet, and all I had to worry about was which way the grain ran on a piece of cedar. Growing up, my granddad showed me everything about wood, how to sand by hand, how to listen to the lumber, how to measure twice and cut once. That place felt permanent, like nothing could ever shake it loose from our lives. But it's always when you start thinking something's unbreakable that the storm comes rolling in, right? My storm had a name, Margaret. Margaret was the HOA president, the type who probably held rehearsals for her speeches in front of a mirror and had a rule for everything, including rules about rules. She showed up on my dock with her little clipboard talking community standards and property values like she was running for office. I thought maybe I was overreacting until my neighbor Tom, who'd lived next to Margaret for 5 years, told me she'd been sniffing around everyone's property, making up violations and threatening folks just enough to scare them, but not enough to get herself in trouble. He'd seen her try to claim his boat lift was illegal when there wasn't even a rule on the books. The vibe I got from Tom, we were dealing with something worse than an overzealous volunteer. Margaret started picking at my cabin, said my dock needed HOA approval, even though it had been there before the HOA was even invented. My siding was too rustic, my workshop too noisy, even though I never so much as used a power saw after dinner. She'd smile at me with that I understand, but rules are rules, look, and I'd have to fight the urge to toss her clipboard into the lake. The weirdest part, she always brought up her son Jake. Young families need recreational access, she'd say, taking photos of my property like she was scouting for house hunters. The woman was practically broadcasting that her unemployed son deserved my place more than I did. Should have trusted my gut right then, but you know how it is. You want to believe people are just a little too enthusiastic, not actually plotting your downfall. But then the questions got personal. She started asking about my deed, original surveys, property lines. She'd look me dead in the eye and say, documentation evolves with time, like she was writing a mystery novel. My skin crawled every time she talked. The last straw was a letter telling me to stop using my dock until further notice because my permit was under review. Standing on that dock, holding her little thread in my hand, I realized I was in the middle of something more than just paperwork. Margaret was gunning for my cabin. And then there was Jake. You ever meet a guy who acts like the universe owes him waterfront property? That's Jake. He showed up, introduced himself, started measuring my dock with his phone, and said, "Get this. Just admiring the craftsmanship, man. This'll make a great family retreat someday." He was scoping out my place like it was his next Airbnb investment. Jake's visits kept ramping up. Measuring tapes, notebooks full of renovation ideas, the guy was basically planning HGTV episodes in my backyard. When I called him on it, he said his mom had him helping with HOA surveys. Right? Because that's normal, sending your son to measure up your neighbor's house. Meanwhile, Margaret's legal games were getting wild letters about property taxes. Mysterious historical boundaries that had never come up in 30 years. I checked with my neighbors. Nobody else was getting harassed. I'd look out the window and see Margaret and Jake whispering, pointing at my cabin, laying out paperwork like they were running a covert op. Every time I thought about walking away, I'd remember my granddad teaching me to feel the wood grain, reminding me that some things are worth fighting for. The emotional and legal bills were stacking up, but I couldn't let her bully me out of my family's legacy. Then came the killer move. Margaret brought over a pro surveyor and announced my cabin was sitting on HOA common area because of a 30-year-old boundary error. She showed up with official maps, county records, everything looking legit. I thought it was a joke until I realized how serious she was. She claimed my property line was 50 feet off, and technically the cabin wasn't mine anymore. I took her documents to a real estate lawyer, thank God I did. My attorney found out Margaret had used her old real estate connections to file revised surveys and fake a paper trail. It was fraud, pure and simple. She'd done the same scam at another lake a few years back. Her endgame: take my cabin, transfer it to the HOA, then lease it to Jake for $99 a month. A lakefront place worth $3,000 a month handed to her kid for pennies. But the system was slow. By the time the county caught up, Margaret had used her connections to get the property officially switched over. She changed the locks, slapped up no trespassing signs, and Jake moved in like he'd been waiting outside with the moving truck. He didn't bring a single thing, just claimed my life as his. Even drank coffee from the mug I'd made with my granddad when I was 14. What really twisted the knife, Jake posted photos online captioned, "Finally got the waterfront. I deserve," like I'd been keeping his inheritance warm all these years. The shame, the anger, seeing him brag about my family's legacy made me want to tear the place down myself. Margaret threw a housewarming party, blasting music, people partying in my workshop, using my tools for a makeshift bar. I stood there in the dark, just outside, and realized I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not quietly, anyway. That's when I started plotting my revenge. I hired my own surveyor, someone with zero ties to Margaret. The irony. The new survey proved Margaret's house was 15 feet onto HOA common ground. Her front yard, her garden, even her mailbox were technically shared property. I marched over to the county clerk with the documents, and the next day I started building a fence right down the actual property line straight through Margaret's yard. A big, beautiful cedar fence post cut and carved by hand. I even burned "Boundaries Matter," survey completed, into a sign and hung it for the world to see. Margaret lost it, came running out in her bathrobe, screaming I couldn't put a fence through her lawn. But this time the neighbors didn't come to her rescue. I just told her, "According to your own survey methods, this isn't your yard anymore. It's common property, and I'm exercising my rights." The fence became the talk of the whole town. Neighbors lined up to see the line that cut her kingdom in half. And suddenly, everyone started checking their own boundaries. Turns out Margaret had been manipulating property lines all over the neighborhood, pushing folks around, stealing land by inches and feet for years. The rebellion that followed was beautiful. Neighbors called a vote, kicked Margaret off the board, and started digging into her schemes. She tried playing the victim, but nobody bought it. They found out she'd been inflating her own house value, deflating everyone else's, all while raking in favors and getting her son a lakeside palace. The county got involved. Turns out Margaret had scammed people in other communities too. Fraud, theft, tax evasion, you name it. She got 14 months in jail, lost her house, and had to pay restitution to everyone she'd cheated. Jake got hit too, had to move back with relatives, scrub his social media, and pick up a job stocking shelves just to help pay his mom's debt. Best part, my fence stayed up, the sign stayed on, and I got my cabin back, every tool, every coffee mug, every plank. The new HOA board runs everything transparent now with a map posted right next to my fence so nobody can play those games again. Neighbors rebuilt what Margaret tore down, and my fence stands as a reminder: don't try to redraw boundaries with lies, because some things just won't budge. Now I sit on my dock with my coffee every morning, watching the sun come up over the lake fence, cutting through what used to be Margaret's yard and is now a little park for everyone. The cabin feels more like home than ever. That fence, quiet as justice, strong as family, permanent as legacy. So let me ask, what would you have done if you've ever tangled with an HOA bully or watched someone try to steal what's yours? Let me know down in the comments. Who was right? Who was wrong? How far would you go to fight for your home? Like, comment, or share if you think justice landed where it should. I'll be here next week. Coffee in hand, fence standing tall, story ready to tell.